Hello everyone, this is Sagar. I think we'll start the session. So we have two speakers today. We have Piyush Gupta, as you can see here, and we have Pranjal Paliwal. So if you haven't joined our previous two sessions, I'll like three sessions where they have spoken. I'll give you like a rundown of who they are. So Piyush Gupta is a currently a senior developer advocate for DigitalOcean. So he's our like representative from Hacktoberfest. Like you can take it like that. And he's worked with IBM in the past, and like he currently works for DigitalOcean currently. And Pranjal Paliwal is a developer at Headout, which is like a tourism company. And he's done like he's completed GSOC in the past, like I think twice, and now he's a senior developer at Headout. So, uh, Piyush, Pranjal, are you guys there?
Yep.
Yeah,
Hi, Pranjal. How are you?
Hi. I'm good.
That doesn't sound that so good.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. I mean, there's like such a down, like I'm good.
Nah.
I think Piyush is AFK. Hello, Piyush, are you there?
yep. I'm here.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Hi, how did the event go? All good?
Yeah, it went without any hiccups, surprisingly. So but this is really
Awesome.
good. Like, thank you. Okay. So I think can we like start the session?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah. Okay. So I think before like if nobody has asked any questions, we like have a few questions that members from like Hack Club have pitched towards you guys. So the first question is going to be a little bit cheesy, but we want to see what answers you guys can give us. So how do you answer the question, how do I get into programming for a complete beginner who has no experience whatsoever?
um, okay. So I would say for a complete beginner who hasn't ever done any programming, I think the best way is to first of all start by writing small scripts. So like I guess I assume that you have been using a computer at scene. I mean, I guess that's a fair assumption to make in this time period. Uh, so the easiest way to get started is to pick up a scripting language, uh, where because like it's easy to see results in them. So basically, whenever you write some scripts, you can easily see the output of them. So I would start like with a easy to learn scripting language like Python, JavaScript, or Ruby. Um, for those guys so that they can I mean see the results of what they are doing faster compared to a more lower level language. This is bit controversial though. I mean some people actually tend to recommend to start writing some high to learn a lower level language like C first before doing this. But I personally advise this uh, uh, first, since I guess this helps people to understand the impact of what they are doing. So for someone who doesn't understand like how things are done, it's a pretty good start. But on the other hand, I also recommend to people that they also try to learn some lower level languages at a later point of time when they have learned enough and they have a good grasp of how things in higher level languages work. So people who are starting right now, I will say they can join any good Python or JavaScript boot camps that are there. There are good online boot camps which are free also. Uh, those are good starting point, and you can make good enough stuff without knowing a lot more lower level details which you should know, but you don't need to know. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Yes. Do you have any different views on this particular topic?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with what Pranjal said, right? And that probably helps, using a script language, as he said, right? It gives you quicker results, and they are, they are almost English-like stuff, right? That you can use and start working with it, right? Uh, I have one more example. I have basically one example that I want to state here is, and I guess I talked about it in the morning session as well. Uh, so I was chatting yesterday with a guy who is coming from a finance background, right? And he was using a tool in his work environment, and that was an open source tool, right? And that was pretty rare because finance guys rarely use open source stuff. Uh, but that was a motivation for him, right? He was using that tool already, and he wanted to learn more about it, how it internally works, or what all goes on behind the scene, right? So if there is somebody who is actually coming from a different background, probably finance, marketing, mechanical, or anything, right? That would be a good starting point for those people, because at any point of time they are going to use some software, right? So if that is an open source software, why not just dive deep into it? It adds value to their work, and it also helps them understand their tool better.
Yeah. On the other hand, Piyush, I really want to know what tool were they exactly using in finance?
I forgot that. I will get back to you with that.
Okay, okay, yeah. I mean, just like
Yeah, because I
adding
was also
random.
surprised. Yeah, no, I will
Yeah,
check for the recording for the event.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Cool, cool.
It was
Yeah, I guess that's a good
some data
example.
analytics tool. Yeah, so some data analytics tool. Basically, you basically just feed the data, and it gives you nice graphs and all those things.
Okay, okay. Well, I
Yeah,
guess
I totally agree with
it
you.
must be, I guess, Jupyter. I guess.
Probably it
I
was
don't.
in Python, right? So I'm assuming it was Jupyter, right? Could
Yeah,
have been. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, totally agree with you guys. Like necessity is like the mother of invention. So like if you start using something, you should like try to automate it and learn programming along the way. Like that's how I would like answer this particular question. Okay. So the next question is, so what was your experience with engineering or like college in general, and how would you advise students to like prioritize personal, maybe like in programming or non-programming projects in college assignments, like to further their careers? Like because college assignments don't really help you with your career, so it's most likely your like personal projects. So how would you like advise students to like manage both of them?
Okay. Okay. I'll start first. So, um, I mean, I guess it really depends on your college. You should first of all understand what stream. So, for example, programming doesn't really. It's not obviously restricted at this point to people who are doing computer science as their college stream. So there are like a bunch of other people who are in a very different subjects who want to learn programming at this point. So even if you are a CS student, and even in that case also sometimes your college curriculum is very out of date, but that is always not the case. For example, I would say in my particular college, there were like good the curriculum was not that out of date. It had good subjects which were like very well thought through, and it actually helped you understand a lot of uh, computer science concepts. So you must understand what you are being taught. Is it really up to date with what people of other? So you need to keep an open mind in that regard. So some people like simply bash that whatever they are doing in college is not useful at all. So that won't work out. But obviously, if you are looking for a computer science as a field, and you are doing something very different, for example electrical and all, and you don't want to pursue any core career in those things, at that time I will definitely advise such people, if you want to pursue a career in computer science or software development after your college, which I guess is true for a lot of folks, at least in India. I guess at that point, I would say prioritize your personal projects a lot more than your college assignments, because uh, I you can always like how it used to happen in my college, where like people used to copy assignments the last day and submit it. And it used to like just people used to get just like decent grades, and didn't really care much. But yeah, if at all, like if you are thinking like it's take too much of your time and you cannot do both, I would prioritize personal projects. But if your college assignments actually help you learn core computer science concepts, which sometimes your personal projects are not able to do. For example, you don't know what kind of personal projects you are making. So if you are making personal projects which are like very high level, so you are not learning computer science concepts which might not help you at a later point of time, because your growth kind of could remain stuck if you are just trying on things very high level and not going deep into them. At that time, a lot more details that your college assignments, for example, I had good OS related assignments and all. If you really delve deep and try to understand what it's trying to imply, then it helped you. So yeah, I would think, like, just keep an open mind, just understand what is the best thing out there and what I'm learning. If you think like if it holds value for you, it's better to do it's good to do assignments also, just like don't deprioritize them, because you might actually discover some good things out of those. But if you are on a complete different track altogether, where obviously the career you want to pursue is whole different lot from what the assignments you're doing, obviously I will like prioritize the personal projects in that manner. That's an easy choice.
Yeah, right. I mean, makes complete sense, right? And I would second that. Uh, it's not just about, the priority basically depends on what your long-term goals are, right? And if what you are trying to do or what you are trying to achieve is completely different for what your college is asking you to do, then it's probably to prioritize that stuff. But that is usually not the case, right? I mean, uh, the way I think about it is, your college does prepare you with at least the basics, right? It might be the case that at an advanced level they are not at par with the industry, but at least on the basics part, they get or they take care of it, very nicely, right? So at least till then, at least till the time you are covering the basics or you are trying to learn the fundamental concepts, I would say the college assignments take priority. But once you move on to create, once you are at a level where you can actually create projects, or when you can actually take them to the final stage, and you can probably at that time you can put them at an equal level.
Yep. Yep. I'll second that.
But that, like, there would be like a second argument where if people prioritize personal projects, then there's a high probability that their grades would drop. So many people have that fear, so that's why they don't prioritize their personal project and just
I
stick
don't
with
think
college.
that a lot of people actually face with that much lack of time that they cannot do both. Uh, I would uh, I would like if at all you're thinking that your personal projects are becoming such a bummer for you that you cannot get good grades in school, um, and you are doing like a very good personal project. I mean, it really depends on the personal project in that matter. For example, uh, uh, I mean, there are cases. I mean, I know examples, but I mean, those are few and rare. So, uh, general advice is that college assignments help you get the basics. So, if you are already very clear with the basics, and sometimes like it's a, I forgot the name of the syndrome, but it's like uh, when you have low information about something, you tend to feel very confident about it. So when someone who's like having less knowledge about how to program is very confident, oh, I can do this and this and this. It only after some time, when you have a good amount of knowledge in something, your confidence actually dips low. But after some time, you it comes to that level where the amount of information you have and the confidence you have regarding it is exactly in balance with each other. I forgot there is a name for this effect. I don't know. Uh, so, Piyush, do you know the name of this effect? I guess it's called Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep, I
Yeah.
believe so.
Yeah. So yeah, you must know where do you lie on that graph. But because I feel that this is
Yep.
a lot with some students in the college life, what happens is like they tend to they think that whatever their college is teaching them, it's completely useless to them, and whatever they are doing is right, and they're very confident about it, and they never question their choices in a certain time where they should have. And what it actually means is like their assignments drop at all, in the I mean, basically the grades drop, and they also don't do well in their personal projects also. So they need to know what this stage they're currently lying in, There could be some factors your seniors could help you see that, or you could see like you are actually making sense or not. For example, like I will point a case like some outliers in that regard is I have a friend who is currently like first second year now second year of college. Before he was even in his first year of college, so basically he was in school. He was a GSOC mentor at that time. He was in 12th class. He was giving exam of 12th class, and he was a GSOC mentor at that time, the time when people are not actually eligible to become GSOC students, right? He was a GSOC mentor, and the projects that he are doing at this point, I'm quite confident to I feel quite confident to say that those are like some really good projects that are actually more valuable than what college assignments would be for him. But that generally doesn't apply to everyone. So you need to find that balance and have this validation from people who are in the industry, or are doing better than you, to understand like whatever choices you are making are not just based on whatever assumptions you have in your mind, right? So that will help you find the right balance between the two.
And right, and as you said, right, personal projects are basically supposed to be done on personal times, right? So when you are doing a college assignment, when you are in college, or college assignments are supposed to be done on that time, right? So I mean, you will face this challenge when you come to your job as well, right?
Yeah.
You would want to do 100 other things, but of course you are, that's a work part and there's a personal part of things, right? So when you are in college, you are supposed to finish your college, right? So that college assignments take priority in that sense, right? But when you have your personal time, I mean, by definition, your personal projects are not supposed to hinder your college assignments, right? So that question of getting grades slow shouldn't arise ideally, like, but it happens, right? We do tend to mix things up, but this basically helps in separating those things. That's how I think whenever I want to do something and it interferes with my work responsibilities, right? I just like to keep and think of that. Okay, that is the personal thing and that is the work thing, and that's how you define them.
Fair, fair.
Yeah, that effect is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It was like, I think I first read it in the OS Dev wiki, like I think 2 years ago, and like I thought, oh, I'd make an OS, but then the wiki told me, no, you can't. You're a noob. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that is then
Well,
like the complete opposite would be the imposter syndrome.
we all have dreamt of creating an OS after reading about Linux, right? That's the first thing
Yeah, I
that comes to
mean, yeah, and then like the OS Dev wiki straight up tells you that no, you can't. You need, like, even people with 20 years of experience don't know how to create OSs properly. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Okay, this is again this, like, if you could change anything about the current CS or IT engineering curriculum, what would you change? Because many people feel that it's not adequate considering the current like the current state of IT in general.
I would say add credits for Oktoberfest. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably, the things might have changed now, but the way I studied, there was very, very little practical exposure at the time, right? So I would say, probably the way we can change curriculum is if we can add more practical stuff, we can, and as you said, right, college assignments was a personal projects, right? Why not make a curriculum that actually encourages people to do more personal projects, right? And you judge them based on that rather than predefined assignments or predefined stuff that people just copy paste from previous years and do that, right? So I think some real world experiences and some encouragement to do with person's individuality, that should go a long way.
Yeah, I guess that would be my answer too. uh, I mean, the time the colleges must realize that just doing more stuff is not the right solution. Like if you are planning to keep students busy at all times, that's not the way to go. You should have you should not the people should have enough free time, but at the same time you could have some credits associated with it, which basically even like encourages people to do more such open source contributions or make their personal projects, which are you know trying to basically where the creativity thing lies and not just rote learning for that matter. So I will say ki the actually the advice that Piyush gave is like pretty good. Like if the colleges can associate some grading with the contribution that people are doing to the open source community or are doing their personal projects in time. So enough time can be given so to those things. So there are things. मतलब- and also, for example, there are some colleges where there are I mean, in first year, since there are a lot of branches, the first year curriculum for all the branches is almost similar. uh, I mean, and it includes some very some things related to physics and all, which I get the point that I guess it's not highly needed at that time. I will say in first year, uh, I will encourage them to do more uh, some more computer science oriented courses, which people are able to grasp in this first second. So like they are able to because if they want to do the self-paced learning at the time, so they can pursue it on their own, like even if they are from a different branch altogether. So that's one thing that could also help. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty open-ended question and is like open for debate because there's no like one correct answer because many people
Yeah,
come
yeah.
from like different backgrounds, so it's not like there's one correct answer for this particular question. So I think we could like move on to the next one. Okay. But this is a pretty vague question, but when studying for interviews, what should one focus on? Like what area, like in particular, or like should you like give more importance for one particular thing?
I mean, it really depends on the kind of companies you are interviewing for. But as it stands out in the current scenario of hiring, your data structures and algorithms really need to be good. I mean, obviously, like it's not a very hardened fact, but at least your initial few rounds will be based on this. There are like obviously this is debatable, and a lot of people just simply bash companies because they do so. It's kind of fair, and but in a company's perspective, it's kind of right for them to do for because like it acts as a good filter where there is no manual intervention needed, and they can automatically based on some tests if those are happening automatically, so they don't need to filter out some of the huge influx of candidates that are coming in. So the person who are at least able to do some, they have good algorithmic knowledge in some areas at least, so though those pass through that filter, and then they can later on evaluate them based on their uh, other skills, if they have like if they have made good projects, or they have a very good problem solving skills, and good design skills for that matter. So all those things. So but at this point, like as it lies today and the scenario, if you want to get a job and get a good job, uh, and there is literally no disadvantage in learning, I assume so. So you should definitely once and like once in your life, at least for interviews, study data structures and algorithms, because like not even just in interviews, it would help you in life, in scenarios that you probably won't expect to help. So good to learn. Some very high level algorithms you might, so for example, reversing a tree and things like that, might not be using that as of now directly, but there will come some situations where you need to know what exact data structure you want to use, and you probably have used it in your data structures or not. On the same hand, I don't really encourage people who are like doing competitive programming all the time in their college life and not doing personal projects. Obviously, like it's a personal choice though. But on a personal note, I want people to also do projects as well as programming, so that they have taste of both the things, and not just like very much stick to one thing just for getting a job. Because like I guess job is easy to crack even with a very easy understanding of like data structures and algorithms, which you can get. You don't need to go very deep into it. But that's one thing I would simply ask candidates to focus once they are applying for jobs or studying for interviews.
Right, and it basically makes sense. It depends a lot on the company you are applying for, what is the role that they are looking at. I mean, giving an interview for a, let's say, a Microsoft versus a Deloitte, right? Those are going to be two completely different role and completely different requirement, right? But it never hurts to learn more, right? And
Mm.
just prepare for the role that you are going to be giving the interview for, right? What it requires. And you might not need to know all the stuff, right? But keep your basics clear, right? Data structure, OS concepts, right? Whatever question you are going to get will mostly revolve around these concepts itself, right? I mean, if somebody asks you to write reversing a tree on a whiteboard, I don't know. I mean, I basically don't.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't prefer that way of doing things. But I mean, yeah, just keep your basics clear, right? And that should help you in most of the cases.
yep. That's very like,
Yeah.
yeah. So this whiteboard interviews actually daunt a lot of people. But I mean, if whiteboard interviews have a good amount of feedback from both the sides, so for example, when you are given a question, the interviewer is actually not just simply standing there and making candidate more nervous and actually helping him solve that issue. Whiteboard interviews can actually be pretty great because it's a free open space to express your ideas, and you can do a bunch of things. Obviously, no one expects you to write the correct syntax there, and but some problems you can basically figure out on that uh, free piece of paper where you can express your ideas. So if you are getting good guidance from the interviewer and the interview process is good, then it's not that a daunting a thing other in some other scenarios where it's not like so. So that's my take.
But like when we see like especially like for people like us who are like keeping up to date with these particular interviews, because many of us are like trying to get jobs later on. So
Mm-hmm.
like say for example, I see a new article or new blog post every week on Hacker News or Reddit saying interviews are bad, or like the desolate region of interviewing is not updated to the current state of like IT or something like that. So imagine you study like 6 months, and like there are like many people write about this. I studied for 6 months, but then in the interview they asked me this one thing that I didn't study and I didn't get the job. So how would you like advise students to like get rid of that fear and just like go for it?
I
Right.
think
So
if you are okay, fine. You can start.
no. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I would say obviously like this problem still exists. I mean, in interviews, obviously, like I would really prefer if the data section algorithm thinks is only a initial filter, and the actual interviews which are happening, they focus more on the practical knowledge about projects that you have made and things you have applied there. But as it stands right now in the current context, which you don't have much power to change, and the things happen, right? Not everyone remembers all the things that they have read in past 6 months or whatever when they were studying. There are a bunch of things to study, and uh, there are like scenarios where you don't remember things. What I would say is like people have this thing that they have this there's this one dream job, one dream company where I want to go and work on. And when if I don't crack that, everything is not as per what I want to or desire. So you just keep remove that thought from your mind. Find good companies here you want to work from. Give a large set of interviews. If you really have studied well in that particular time period, and you have learned from your mistakes that you have done giving the past interviews or mock interviews for that matter, you will at a certain point of time will find a good enough company. Maybe some interviews later, you will find a company which would have hired you, and you probably that scenario, that this particular thing they asked, that won't happen again and again. That might happen in one or two interviews. Obviously it somewhat is dependent on luck. It shouldn't be as much, but it is as of now, as it stands right now. So yeah, that's my take. Like if you really apply for a lot of I mean a decent set of companies one after another, and you gain experience and learn from mistakes, I think after a certain set of companies, you might be actually be able to have a decent job in your hand. So that scenario, that particular thing was missed, and that's why I lost this job. That happens. Uh, I mean, the probability of that will be lower, much and much lower, as it will be.
Right, and what Pranjal said, right? It is about luck, right? I mean, don't get disheartened. There are a lot of factors in play when you are giving an interview, right? It's not. I mean, if you don't clear an interview, it's not a question on you, right? Think of interview as a discussion between two parties, and those two parties are trying to come to an agreement, right? Now, it and the deal could fall through due to hundreds of other reasons, right? The only way you can get success in that by increasing your chances. And how do you do that? It's just a numbers game, right? You give 30 interviews, 40 interviews, 60 interviews, right? Because when you are giving an interview, uh, you have to vibe at the same wavelength that your interviewer is thinking of, right? A thing. I mean, I have done a lot of interviews. I have given a lot of interviews, right? And I have failed a lot of them, and I have probably disqualified some of the qualified candidates, right? So, in the end of the day, what actually matters is how how well you are able to get that conversation into your favor. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. The way you work it out is you basically increase your chances by giving more number of interviews. That's all. So, and don't worry. I mean, if you work for if you are preparing for 6 months or 8 months and those kind of time period, you will definitely find a company where you would have a place to go for, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that exactly like what I'm saying. Like, I'll
Yeah,
second that.
yeah, thank you, guys. That was like really well put. And Piyush's like line, like you need to vibe with the interviewer, really made me chuckle.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the reality. You guys are in, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you guys have a placement season going on now or not yet?
Some of us do, and some of us don't.
Right. So when you come out of that placement season and when you look back at it, and I always wonder, how did that person get into that company? It's not possible. I know this person for 4 years, but those things happen, right? I mean, there's no way out of it.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next question. Okay, so this is how would you popularize the concept of like open source software and contributions to it across like every engineering field in India? Because in India, like many students don't really like take to open source readily. So like, how do we change this, or like what? Because our particular like club in our particular college is like dependent on open source software, and everything we do is OSS. So would you give us any tips to like make it more popular amongst our college and even like locally, like amongst other colleges, so we can like get more
Participate
people
in
involved?
Hacktoberfest. Participate in Hacktoberfest.
I mean that's one thing,
Yeah,
but like generally, like locally.
see, the way these things work is you have to add some incentive to it, right? I mean, I mean, if you
Yes.
don't have any
Yeah.
incentive, nobody is going to, do the work for you, right? Now, that
Yeah.
incentive, one is you provide them, some swag or some credits or something like that. Another incentive is you tell them that, this is going to help with your skills, it's going to help you learn more, it's going to help you in your career, right? And one more incentive is, as I was talking about that finance guy, he just wanted to learn more about the tool, right? And now not everybody is like him, but I mean, those are a few of the things, right? That you can use. The only way is as long as there is some benefit coming out of it, and people are learning about that, right? Open source, the way it has grown from the time it started, right? When for 1980s and 90s, right? Things have changed a lot, and one of the biggest reason of that is uh, people people do believe that it helps them increase their skills, right? If you contribute more to open source, you will learn more, you will probably get to know more, and in the end of the day probably you'll get a better job, right? And that becomes a complete different motivation. But in the end of the day, the idea is you have to incentivize in one way or the other. Hacktoberfest is one way. There are a lot of hackathons. GSOC is an amazing program that basically achieves that, and there are a lot of hackathons that keeps happening, right? That's the only way.
Uh, yeah, I mean, that's a valid way. Like, people actually in India are a lot more insane. People are run towards like when there are like real incentives and mostly cash related or like material incentive around something, people actually tend to follow it a lot more than non-material or like personal growth related incentive when they are there. Compared to that, people actually tend to have a bit more attraction towards the material incentives that are there. So yeah, that's a way to do it. But otherwise also like uh, you could like I mean I'm just it's like the concept of OSS, like people are not aware that, I mean I guess awareness is also a factor. Like people are not aware that whatever things they are doing or whatever basically whatever software they are using at this point, they are bind by some of the license agreements in that, which could actually and basically, so for example like when I was young and like people used to do a lot like people didn't care about breaking EULAs like uh, license agreements and I mean it's not an issue in India, obviously, like it's a large country and you don't have the laws applicable and no one will actually come looking after you. But this whole idea of some giant corporation having this great control of using the software, and you have good enough alternatives that work well in a lot of use cases, and you don't really need to depend on that. I guess that's also a factor for some of the people. Like people, once they understand that there is existence of such enough viable alternatives which can be even free, like there sometimes can be a paid and free uh, discussion around them too. So I guess that also needs to come through once they will start understanding, obviously, like this fits the use case better. uh, I mean, there could be material incentives, there could be non-material incentives just to grow. But yeah, as a found in India, non-material incentives don't really work well, and I don't
Yeah.
really have good suggestions to uh, make it different at this point. But I guess that will happen in time as people and culture will change.
True,
Right,
true.
and
But
what
like,
happens with the material incentive as well, we saw it in the first 2 days of Oktoberfest.
yeah.
People
Yeah,
do try to game the
shit
system.
over fest.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Twitter account.
crazy, crazy.
Yeah, but that
So
would entail like for the reason like we have problems in Hack Club and MIT. I wouldn't say problem. It's more like engagement is very low because material gain is very less. So it's
yeah.
like
Exactly.
it's inverted.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
economics.
think that could be. Yeah, true. Yeah,
That's a large cultural change that will like start with material incentive. Eventually people will start to enjoy things more. The not just people will go to hackathon not just for the sense of getting one extra t-shirt, but just to interact with people or basically network and things like that, and not just for getting one extra t-shirt, because that won't matter to them as much as the networking effect that it has and things like that. I guess culture is changing slowly, but yeah, I mean, it will take time, some time definitely. Like it, you won't see it happening overnight or I mean, in a year or something. It will eventually happen. The people will get rid of the material benefits and start to see the real value in it, because there are people who did some amazing things and they see themselves doing so by so and so platform. Once the platforms are popular due to the material incentive, then the platform will have enough brand value of themselves that they don't need a incentive to sell. For example, let's say if I at a certain time, like the GSOC, um, let's say the GSOC money cuts in half, like it happened once also. So the GSOC money cuts in half due to the PPP scaling that happened. Let's say the Google tries to do it once more. There will still be a good number of participants that will be working for it, because they know the other value which is associated with it is also the brand value, and they get to contribute to a project. And eventually it could happen like they, a lot of those people actually keep contributing to the project that they had contributed in. so they actually hold a place in the community now. So those kind of things happen. So the initial motivation was material, but eventually when people realized, oh, it has some worth, those things dropped off. So yeah, I guess that's the way that you eventually could do it in India, as as per my thinking.
Yeah, but then again, that then you'd be like relying on like a like a very big corporation on like making the material gain possible. Because as you said, like GSOC, Google has full reign over it, so
Yeah,
that
I
wouldn't
get
really
the
be open source,
yeah,
like
I get the
technically.
point. The corporations are but sometimes like obviously like if Google is sponsoring the cause is still noble, and I mean if it gets people to start working in it, and because like the kickstart has to go somewhere or the other. In generally, like sometimes like people are naturally inquisitive and they want to learn more just by doing this, but if they are not, I mean first of all I guess even the material incentive won't help in that case, but some people actually tend to develop an interest after the material incentive. So I mean, people will think ki obviously like doing competitive programming in this and this much time will definitely fetch me a job because the interviews are definitely based on it. But what will the GSOC help me for? Like, it's not giving me money right now. The interviews won't be based on it. So why should I bother doing it when it's not fetching me something? But when they will see like there are good products which are coming up, there are people who did it in the past and they did good products later on. So it really broadens up their mind and things like that. They will actually do this just also without money. I mean, that's how I feel. So, I mean, just like I'm just mostly reiterating what I said in the past. So, yeah, that's what.
Yeah, I get that's a valid point. I mean, like somebody has to start sponsoring people to get them motivated to do like more things in the future.
In fact, like I think if someone is feeling like Google is becoming the power on it, I guess there should be more and more organizations coming up. I mean, which should sponsor such activities. Which because
No, like
as a student community, like it's a great place for like a global exposure and things like that. And not always the open source organizations can fund it by themselves because they don't have that much money coming in via contributions or funding. Uh,
yeah, but that's like slowly changing. I mean,
yeah.
Microsoft, Google, and like they're sponsor even Apple is sponsoring like the open source as OSF like foundation, and like they're giving more bounties for like open source fixes and things like that. And it's like slowly
Mhm.
changing, and like hopefully people in India also like
Yeah,
get
yeah,
on
yeah,
that train.
yeah, sure.
Okay. The next question would be okay. I think we've already answered this question, but do you guys have any other points to like add to this? How do open source projects or contributions and OSS help in getting jobs?
I, I guess the same point. The open source projects, like, I mean, I got so there are companies which definitely look at your open source profiles, and obviously you will be a much better developer because you have a very deep understanding of how things are working compared to someone who's like solving things, the artificial problems in data structures and algorithms. Obviously, he also has some edge over you in like he can apply complex data structures, but he hasn't seen scenarios where that should be applied, and most software actually doesn't require you to do so. So I mean the companies that have started to value it more and more. There are like a bunch of good companies which actually see the open source contributions um, as a good plus point in the resume. Obviously, like it has also come to the point that there are recruiters of the companies coming up who randomly scan the GitHub profiles. There are like good GitHub plugins which basically give you what are the all the good people who have done this much contributions in their past year in that particular area. People use tools like that. The recruiters use tools like that to filter out profiles, and there are a bunch of things which are coming up in that, which are like just GitHub based. So let's say you're contributing to something else, it doesn't really come up. Um, but if you are doing, I guess there are enough traction. I'm just saying that enough things are coming up at this point. People are starting to realize value, and uh, I mean, you probably won't, if you are contributing right now to open source projects and doing good work in them, uh, probably there's a good chance that you have something better to write on your resume than you were president of so and so club in your college or things like that. I guess that's where it could help a lot.
Right. I think it comes down to two main things. One is skill and one is exposure. Right. You work with open source projects, you basically, are exposing yourself to a real world project where there are thousands of people who would be going through it, probably scrutinizing it, probably forcing you to change your style, the way you do things, and that helps you in improving your skills as well. And that is anyway eventually going to help you not just in getting job, whatever programming, whatever the reason you do programming. It might be your day job to do programming, and you can still contribute to SS and get your skills and become better at what you do. But as Pranjal said, right, there are a lot of recruiters nowadays who are actually looking at GitHub profiles nowadays, and trying to get a sense of how good of a contributor you are, and that basically adds whole value to your profile.
Yeah, so I agree with that, but there's this ironic contradiction that I remember. I think 2 years ago, the Homebrew developer, you guys know Homebrew, right? The package manager for macOS.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Talking about that tweet, right?
Yeah. It's he wrote a software that 90% of Apple engineers use, but he couldn't invert a binary tree and he didn't get the job.
Yeah, I understand that point. I guess at this point, it's more like a screwed up engineering process that the companies have than his skill. Like, obviously, at the time when you have such a, when you are, I mean, obviously, I'm not a great judge to tell if the company's hiring process is right or wrong, but obviously, if at all someone has that good a profile and has made such good products, I think there should be some reforms in that manner, like how people tend to review and interview such people, because you know I mean, they can add a lot more value than a standard engineer who could solve such and such problems could ever add. So, uh, but yeah, I guess that's also a one-off case. I mean, you should realize that when a person like that is saying so, it means something. But a lot more people will just simply think, okay, I have been doing so and so things. I'm not study algorithms in industry because I have been also contributing to open source. So, I mean, you should know, obviously, he stands at a much better level than you, and he has developed a really great project for that matter. So, you must know what his stance and your stance is. When he is saying that, he obviously stands it right, because I think at that time when you are such a reputed developer, the interview process should be skewed enough for that. But as a general purpose developer who hasn't done a very good, has contributed decent open source projects, but hasn't done very great contributions yet or made something, I guess in that case, if a company feels like they still will require a data section algorithm as a round, uh, that's their personal choice. I won't really mind, but if they're doing it for so and so advanced developers, that's where it kind of hurts me too. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, maybe that particular instance was a one-off, and many other open source developers got good jobs. And who knows?
Yeah,
Statistics
could be. And also it's not just it was just Apple who did this, and I'm not sure it could also be the interviewer who did this.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of scenarios which I already talked about. So at this point, obviously the process need to change, but it also needs to take into account the level that people are. It's not just simply there's no right and wrong in that. It's right for them to do for so and so candidates, but for some special candidates, they can always mend rules, I would say.
Piyush, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, see, I have I have never been a fan of doing interviews that way, but as I said, like, I mean, that probably has worked for some companies, and they have what they have. And if a person of that level was only judged on this measure, that if he can invert a binary tree or not, I think he's better off doing
Not
what
joining
he's
such a
doing
company.
now. Right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a
it's
good.
not
That's
it's
a good
not
call.
worth
Yeah,
it,
fair
right?
enough.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
worth it.
Yeah.
Really.
yeah.
Okay. I think we're coming to the end. Okay. Yeah, this is like a fun question, quote unquote. Okay. So what are your thoughts on like when your non-tech friends ask you like, can you hack this site or can you like hack this account for me? Like, what kind of answers do you give, and are they sarcastic like 90% of the time?
Uh, to be honest, I don't have a lot a lot of non-tech friends left at this point. But when I
Okay.
did have, um, yeah, yeah, obviously, like, uh, I was like, dude, I'm not into this stuff and all. I mean, you know what? There was once a computer school, like a school computer teacher. So basically, in my 11th and 12th, I took this elective course that you have. It's called IP, Information Practices, where they teach you some basic Java and basically, uh, if you know, uh, there is a frame-based framework, um, which basic there's a Java swing framework where you can basically make GUI apps. So they teach you so and so stuff. So there was a teacher who used to teach us. When I was in college in my second year, she randomly messaged me on Facebook and said, "Dude, can you hack Facebook for me?" And I was like, I mean, Monica, what? I mean, of all people, I expected you to at least know that this and all these things are these things are like not so easy and doable for that matter of fact. But yeah, as it turns out, the conversation was like very awkward, and she told me like she wanted to do it for so and so reason and things like that. I was like, do it. Like I'm not really eligible. Like I don't have those skills to do. So, and it was really hard time making her understand that fact. But yeah, let us sink in. Like the teachers who are actually teaching programming are doing so. What about other people? Yeah.
And I just asked them for $10,000. Either either
That's
way it works out
straightforward.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a price attached to it, right? And if that person is ready to shell out that kind of money, then this is serious, right? Then I can get help to get that done. But yeah. I mean, jokes aside, right? People do come up with these kind of crazy stuff. And I mean, my best response is to just ignore this kind of thing,
Yeah.
because the more you get into those discussions, the more crazy it becomes, and then you have to
Yeah.
explain all that stuff. So it's better to ignore that.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. That's like the $10,000 thing is pretty straightforward. I'm going to use that later on.
I'll probably ask $1 million. Like, why not? Because why not? What if you get paid?
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, considering if the friend is asking you, he can't afford $1 million.
Yeah, that's a numbers game, right? I think if I can get somebody to get $10,000, probably I can charge more fees at a later stage. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I think this is the last. Okay, so this is the last slide I'm going to take. Okay, so this is like it can be. So this is a favorite pick of yours in the like recent time, like in the last week. Can be a movie, can be a TV episode, it can be a podcast, can be an app, or could be anything, a book or like even an audio book of what you like or what you read, or even an article. So if you can share like anything like you found interesting in the past week or in the past month or in like recent time.
I've been listening to, like, I started listening to Naval's podcast recently. I mean, if you know, like, he's the founder of Angel List, and he's like a renowned VC. He goes by the name Naval on Twitter, and like he tweets about stuff. And I mean, I used to follow him on Twitter, but I got to know that he has a podcast. and I have like watched almost all of them at this point. But if you haven't like really done it yet, it's like he has really great advice to make. Like I mean, I guess one should actually listen to it once in their. I mean, if you are in tech career, uh, it's a great thing to listen to it at least once. So
What is the podcast called?
so the podcast is called, I guess, I'll just check it on Spotify. Wait, what was the exact name of this podcast? But it's by Naval, Naval.
Okay.
Wait, the podcast is called. Check, yeah, the podcast is also called Naval.
That's very
Yeah,
branding.
yeah.
Nice branding.
Yeah, nice branding, dude. I mean, you should also follow him on Twitter if you don't. Like, it's a great. He has some great ideas about things. So, yeah. I'm copying the link of Spotify on this chat if anyone wants to check it out at a later time. So, yep, that was my thing. Piyush, what was yours?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been a decent week. I mean, it's an interesting week, right? What all happened with Hacktoberfest, and I guess for me, it was more about human psychology, right? I mean, see, when we do this program, we do expect a certain level of spam, and we do expect that some these things are going to happen, but to a certain extent, right? The way it exploded, right? I mean, that was crazy, and then we had to track down the source, and all those things happened, and then we had to come up with new rules, and I guess I didn't. I mean, the whole team literally didn't sleep for 2 days. So, uh, but again, the thing that I get out of it is, I mean, the moment you say free, it's going to be chaos, right? I mean, that's the way humans are built, right? You give them too much freedom, it's going to be chaotic. Yeah, that's a good learning. I guess probably it would help probably in future programs, or if somebody is going to create those kind of programs, or if somebody is just planning to do these kind of events. But yeah, this learning is gonna go a long way.
Yeah, it would be like a case study in making open source.
Yep.
Uh,
I mean, not just about open source, right? The issue was not about open source, right? The issue was basically when you open
yeah,
these
them abusing
floodgates
the
of
system.
exactly how easily people can game the system, and that too
Yeah.
for something as sacred as open source, right? When we talk about open
Mm.
source, we talk about with respect, about community, about respecting each other, and then people, and there are some people who are just there to game the system. So yeah, people learn.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, guys. This is like a Sunday evening. I don't want to take more of your time. I mean, so I think we can wrap it up. If you guys have anything more to add, you can please do so, or I think we can like get this over with.
Yeah, I guess, I mean,
Yep.
thanks for having me. I think it was
Thank you.
a great event,
Thank
and
you so much for coming, Piyush.
thank everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, we're not going to bug you anymore, like not too many times, hopefully.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, thank you, Pranjal. Also, like even you came again like after 2 months, I think. Thank you so much for taking your time, and even Piyush.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we can end this. If anybody has any more questions, I think we can wrap up. So yeah, I think nobody's asking. I think we can call it a day. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.